Hello, friends. Welcome to season 3, episode 23 of Looking Up. This will be our final episode of this season. We can't believe we've already been through 3 seasons of friendship and fun and laughter and encouragement, we hope, and some Bible thoughts. And we've just enjoyed so much this time that we've been able to spend together and with you. And we appreciate all of you who have joined us on this journey. And we plan on picking back up after a couple weeks. So hope you'll tune back in when we get started again. I am Carla Moore. I'm one of your hosts, and with me is Kathy Pollard. I am in Athens, Greece right now. Kathy's in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and by the wonder of technology and some prayers and a few plugs here and there, Zoom meeting going with not so great internet on my end as usual. I can't get away from it. Just everywhere I go, there's bad internet. Maybe it's me. I don't know. So we're going to try to get through this. And so how are you doing, Kathy? What's going on over there?
I'm doing really good. And, Bowling Green is a little more exotic than Athens, Greece, but don't be
I
jealous.
know. I'm trying not to be.
We got Bible camp coming up. So by the
Mm-hmm.
time everybody listens to this, we will be in the swing of things. And so we're gearing up for that. That's always a great week. And looks like the weather's going to be really good this year. So looking forward to that. I get to teach the teen girls and work in the kitchen. And the best part about working in the kitchen at camp is that Dana Simpson is in there, and
Cinnamon rolls?
she makes her cinnamon rolls for the campers, which is a huge undertaking. I mean, she makes the dough from scratch and everything, but she also makes kind of secret little treats just for the kitchen staff. So that's where
Not tell
the
anybody about that.
the recipe for lazy cream horns that I love now.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I had it was last year at camp, and she made that just for kitchen stuff, but she's doing that every year. She always makes, 2 or 3 things throughout the week just for us. That's the
Awesome.
big perk of working in the kitchen, plus getting to
What is
hang out with those ladies.
What's a
So
typical day at camp? When do you start and what do you do? And
it's going to be a
how many
little bit
Bible classes?
different for me this year because usually I just do the kitchen, but
Mm-hmm.
so I get there about 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we're in there all day, until the evening time. But now I'm teaching the teen girls, and so my class is at 9 o'clock. And so I think it's about 45 minutes. And then after that, I'll go into the kitchen from there. So
Will you have to help fix breakfast since you have a 9 o'clock class?
no, originally I thought I would. I thought I'd just show up for breakfast, but I kind of want to be able to get my mind in gear and go over my notes. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do that in the morning, go straight to my class, and then just go at 9:45, go into the kitchen and spend the rest of the day in there. So
What
that's
are
my
your
plan.
classes about?
Well, this year's theme is something about the Olympics.
Something.
And each of the rings represents a step in the plan of salvation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of focusing in on a little bit deeper look into, like, the first day is hear and believe, and the second day is repentance, and the third day is confession. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like an emphasis on that. And I'll do a little Bible marking with them, the plan of
Mm-hmm.
salvation, or what baptism does, and things like
Is it
that. So,
Sunday through Friday?
yes.
Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, I hope you have great weather and I hope nobody
Thanks.
gets sick and I hope you get extra easy cream horns and it's going to be great. I love going to camp. It doesn't fit into our schedule right now. It just doesn't. So we
Oh,
haven't in a while, but
yeah.
there's something special about that. I don't know. There's just something about being almost sequestered away from the world with your Christian family for that week and
Hmm.
it's hard to want to go back after that. So good
Yeah.
times.
It is. It is. It's a long week. Usually by the end of it, I'm ready for it to be. I wouldn't want to be at camp for 2 weeks.
No.
But the singing and seeing all the kids together
Mhm.
and the
How many kids are
camaraderie.
there?
I don't know. A lot.
Like 100 or
More
200
than
or
that. It's probably closer to 200, but I really don't know.
yeah.
I'm not in charge of that part. I just do what I'm
Yeah.
told.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a good week. We're praying
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. So, how about you?
Well, we are packing up tonight and heading home tomorrow, Lord willing. Should be home not this time tomorrow night. It's a lot longer than that, but our flight's at like 12:55 here. So that means it would be 5 a.m. there. And we should be home by midnight tomorrow night, which here would be 8 o'clock a.m. So anyway, I don't really like to think about it because it's a long trip. We go from here to Atlanta, have a 3 hour layover, and then on to Austin. But it's 8:35 p.m. right now. So the sun, it's setting. You can probably still see a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
daylight back there.
Yeah.
So there at where you are, it's what, 12:30, 12:35?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been a great trip. We've had just had great people. We always do. We always have great people. I mean, when you travel with Christians, they're just the best. And we've had some friends on the trip that we already knew, that we've been able to be with again. And then of course we always make new relationships. And it's been great. We haven't had any major issues. I think the last time we recorded, I was in a hotel room in Thessaloniki, however they say it 5 different
Yeah.
ways, because I was there with a couple of ladies who weren't feeling well that day, and we stayed in the hotel. And then it just kind of started trickling throughout the bus. So I was noticing yesterday on the bus, it was like a hospital. You could hear coughs everywhere, but it wasn't anything
Ugh.
major. I mean, I know some people felt pretty rotten for a few days, but for me, I take Zicam whenever. That should be my something good for you, Zicam. Do you ever use that?
No.
It's a combination of zinc and vitamin C, and you take it at the first sign of a cold. And so when you sneeze and you feel like that, oh, that doesn't feel good. It's just that
Yeah.
kind of tickle at the back of your throat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started taking that. You take one, and then every couple of hours when you think of it, take another. And so mine only lasted, I don't know, a couple of days, and it wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that kind of thing is inevitable when you're traveling together, when you're in close quarters and stuff. But I jotted down where all we had been since we talked. After we left Thessaloniki, we went to Berea, and then we went to Meteora, which has there. It's incredible. You have to Google it. Incredible, tall, boulder. I mean, they're mountains, but they don't. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. And there's monasteries on top of those
Oh.
mountains. I mean, they're really mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So John talked about monasticism and how it's that's not what Jesus wants us to be like. How God didn't call us to isolate ourselves, but to be lights. And so we went there. We went to Delphi, where the Oracle of Delphi was, and um, he talked about a lot of different things. But the Oracle of Delphi was very ambiguous, and it was more about predictions. And of course, it was pagan. But there's a monument, or not a monument. It's just a display in the museum there that mentions the name of Gallio, who's mentioned in First Corinthians, I think 15, where Paul went before the judgment seat and Gallio was there. So it kind of helps to date. It confirms the date of when Paul would have been in Corinth. And then we went to Athens from there. We worshiped with the church in Athens on Sunday evening. They have an English speaking service at 6.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a group of Harding students that were there, and one of our girls that's with us finished her first year at Harding, and so there was a couple of people that she knew that were in that group. It's always interesting and fun to see how small the world is, especially in
Yeah.
the church.
Running into somebody
Yeah,
on the other side
yeah,
of the world. Yeah.
because of the church. Yeah, and then so yesterday we spent up on Mars Hill and on the Acropolis and saw the Parthenon. And no, that was 2 days ago. Then yesterday we went to Corinth, and I was really excited about going to Corinth because right before we left, I read a book, and I had read it like 20 years ago. Did I say something about this last week? I
I
can't
think so.
remember it
Mm-hmm.
on the podcast or during our personal. Anyway, it doesn't
It's all a
matter.
blur.
It really is. But in Corinth, you can still see the judgment seat, the bema that's there, and you can see what Paul would have been chained to before the judgment seat. And
Oh, wow.
so I had finished reading that book, and a lot of the book was set in Corinth, and it was just,
Mm-hmm.
it's just so cool to see those things. And
Wow.
again, we walk by faith, not by sight. But when you see these things, that everything, it's saying that if you read it in the Word, you can dig it in the dirt. And there's so many things here in Israel and Rome and in places of the Bible that just help with your conviction and with your it just helps confirm what you know to be true because the Bible says it to be true. But to have that extra, um, those those things that you see and hear and feel, it's just really cool. So
Gives me goosebumps. Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
That's awesome.
Well, anyway, today we had our free day and I followed John around and he stuck his head in some holes and I told you earlier I am
Of
filthy.
course he did.
I am
Yeah.
filthy. Yeah, he actually crawled through one because it's like a nightmare to me. But you could see it was maybe 3 feet long. But he said, "Get a picture of me from behind, and then on the other side." So of course he did that. But we've had good food. We've had Greek food. I still prefer Italian food, but Greek food's pretty good. Souvlaki and had some good stuff. So anyway, that's what's been going on. Tomorrow we head home.
Well, you think that's something.
I really hope it doesn't sound like. I mean, I
No,
know that you know.
just teasing you.
I know you are, but I don't want.
Go ahead and say it.
I just don't want anybody to think this is a ministry that John and I are blessed to be a part of, and this is how much I know about things that are going on over here. And John, it always amazes me what he can remember, and he just knows things, and he has like this photographic memory when it comes to stuff over here. Of course, can he remember our grandchildren's names 100% of the time? No, he can't. But it's not because he doesn't want to. It's just it's so funny to me. Like even today, we were doing some shopping and he couldn't find his credit card. And it's the credit card that I've asked him to use over here because it's the one that there's no fees, no international fees, and all that. And he's like, "But I thought you told me to use this one, and I don't know where that one is." And like, you're so smart. You're so smart. You know all these things, but you can't remember which credit card to use. So.
He's too busy setting his mind on things above.
I know. He really ought to be on this podcast with you because he's the one looking up. But it's been fun. It's been fun. We had a new guide named Vula. Have you ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes, I have.
Remember that aunt that talked about that they found a tumor in her with teeth and hair, and you remember that part? It's really gross. But anyway, her name was Vula.
Gross.
I know, it is gross. So every time for like the first 2 days, every time I looked at our tour guide, I kept thinking teeth and hair. But she was great. She talked with her arms and she was bouncing all over the place. And we've never had a female tour guide before. And so that was different. But she's just like this Greek mama who likes to cook for her family, but she knows she's reading out of her Greek New Testament. When we were at Corinth, there's a sign in the ground that has Erastus, the name Erastus that you read about in First Corinthians, the city treasurer of Corinth. And I won't try to explain that, but she's got her Greek New Testament out and reading in the Greek about where Erastus is found. Yeah. And I wanted to mention too that Lois Webster is on this trip with us, and I think I mentioned it last week. I can't remember, but she is one of the founding members of the Sisters podcast, and so she and I have had a lot of fun together. And we took some pictures yesterday up on Mars Hill. We were looking up, and we thought we were sisters looking up. So,
cute!
It's been a lot of fun being with her. Yeah. Anyway, that's my life the last week. So.
Well, you may have been to Corinth, but I found some dishes. I found some dishes. I like dishes. I'm kind of a dishaholic, and Neil's always, kind of giving me a hard time about it. Step away from the dishes.
You never have too many dishes.
Do you know Falscraft? Yeah. So that old pattern, the Village collection. It's that one. Oh, I'll show you. It's that one that's brown and cream. It's got that. It's kind of got that early American vibe, which I love. I love this one and the one that's blue and kind of a creamy gray too. The Yorktown pattern.
Is it like a mixing bowl?
Like a batter. It's like a little batter bowl. Huh. But anyway, this lady, I had to drive an hour and 20 minutes, or we did, to get there. But this lady was selling her entire collection that she had been collecting for years. And she said that she thought that her daughters or her granddaughters might be interested in them, but they're not. And so I have 65 pieces.
Wow.
And
Do you have room for them?
She sold it for $65.
Nice. Good find.
And it is, I mean, look at this, the whole mixing bowl set,
Yeah.
like all three
Oh,
of these.
wow.
I'm making a lot of racket now. These great big platters,
Yeah.
great big pitchers, of course, dinner plates. And when I first saw them, I thought, I really don't want all those things. I just want the dinner plates and a few mugs. And I still felt like that price just for the pieces that I wanted. I wanted the mixing bowls, the dinner plates, and a few of the mugs. And I thought that's still a great price just for those pieces. And I'll just get rid of the rest of them. But then when I saw it all together, I was like, oh, wow. This collection
I
is
need it. I need
amazing. And there you can still buy this pattern, but one set, which is like 4 pieces for 5 if you count the saucer, under the cup, is $130.
Yeah.
Just for one plate, one bowl, one cup and saucer. And so anyway, I was like, I feel like I'm channeling my inner Carla right now.
Was it a Facebook Marketplace?
It was, yeah. And they were the sweetest people. They live out in a beautiful home with this gorgeous view. And we ended up chatting with them for a while and found out that they raised 3 boys too. And, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just kind of giddy about this whole thing.
So where are you going to put them?
Well, I have a hutch by the dining room table that right now houses my transferware collection. And I think I'm going to pull all that out and put this in there because, excuse me, I love the look of it all together and I don't really want to hide it in a cupboard.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just going to switch them out and do that. And then I'm not quite sure what I'll do with all that transferware right now, but
you have to share a picture.
Yeah. And anyway, so the bread platters, I've got that, covered butter dishes, covered casserole dishes. I mean, it's incredible. So
time for a dinner party.
Yeah, that's what Neil said. He was kind of excited about it too, whether he'll admit it or not. Speaking of Neil, I've got to share this. I told you about it before we hit record.
Oh, this is a good one.
Oh my! So, excuse me. In last week's episode, what? What?
It's like I almost want to go. I can't listen again.
I know, it's so cringy.
Yes.
In last week's episode, I said something. We were talking about, what were we talking about? If we got busted being snarky to our husbands, like if somebody was videotaping the faces that we make or recording how we talk when when it's just me and my husband or whatever. Well, this week, I needed some copies made for camp, and I'd asked Neil to make the copies for me at the church building. And he started them. I sent them to him via text. I shared the document via text. Where this is going.
I'm just gonna.
So he started it at the building, but didn't want to wait around for them to finish copying it and left. And then the next time he went back, he texted me and said, when I got to the building, Derek Johnson, who's one of our deacons and the director of camp, was there at the church building making his own copies, which means he had to move Neil's stuff aside. And Neil discovered that instead of printing the document I sent him, he printed off 12 pages of personal texts between him and me. 25 copies of 12 pages of personal text. And just reading, my scalp is tingling even now, just thinking about it. Ugh, just reading that text, I had that instant sick feeling in the pit of my stomach and like a cold sweat breaking out on my neck and cheeks. And I was like, it was like, what all have we been saying? And we send each other pictures of things sometimes. Not those kinds of things, but
wait, Kathy, go back. You better erase that. Not that.
Not those kinds of, but like funny things or whatever. And so I did remember that there was one point this week where I was frustrated with Neil because it was about time to go. I'm like, I think when I was talking about it, I told you he was on the treadmill, but he wasn't. He was on the lawnmower. But we needed to leave in 5 minutes for where we were going. And he was still on the lawnmower dust flying around the lawnmower. So I knew he was going to need to shower. And I texted him, we need to leave in 5 minutes, exclamation point, exclamation. Now there's no frowny faces around it. It literally, when you're reading it, it just says, we need to leave
Was
in
it in
5
all
minutes.
caps?
But it wasn't in all caps, but
Okay,
it had
so
a
it
lot
didn't
of
sound like you're
exclamation points.
screaming.
But in my mind, I'm going, we need to leave in 5. And so anyway, he said, really? I was like, what did we say? What did we say? And do you think he read it? And Neil's going, wouldn't you? But Neil said, there's really nothing embarrassing in there except that you went on and on about your weight.
Let this be a lesson to all of us.
Oh man, when I told you, you said it's a wake-up call, and it really is, because I mean, we know that we always have an audience.
Sure.
God is always listening in and stuff, but still, we just kind of fool ourselves into thinking this is just between me and Neil. And if I want to be snarky, out it comes, And here, 12 pages of personal
25
text.
copies of 12 pages.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could pass that out at camp next week.
I mean, thankfully, there wasn't really anything. Right. There wasn't really anything. I mean, there were some embarrassing things, but nothing real bad, But there have been times when I've texted some things that I would not be proud to have anybody else read. And you're right. It was a huge wake up call. But I thought, how ironic is that? I literally just said, what if you got busted?
I was just thinking we should have a poll next week, but I don't know if we could do it anonymously. I have to think about it. But would you, in the same situation, if you came upon that on the copier, would you read it or would you not? I mean, I think we all would like to say no. Of course, I would not do that, but
I probably would.
Honestly, I think I probably would too. I mean, I think it would depend on if it started getting like, in an area that I know would not be.
Yeah. Or they're talking about things that are supposed to be confidential.
Personal, yeah. I know I would put that
Hopefully.
down, but.
Well, and not only that, he had to have known it was us because Neil sent pictures to me of him with peaches. So like, no hiding who did this.
Yeah, well, that is cringy. Very, very, very cringy.
Neil doesn't even care. Like even now, every time I think about it, I just feel ill. Like it's mortifying to me that this happened. He doesn't even, he's like, well, there wasn't anything real embarrassing. I mean, Neil's probably more embarrassed that he accidentally printed off text instead of the document.
Yeah.
That's probably all he cares about,
Mm-hmm. Well, last night we were having our farewell meeting. I told you about this, but we were having our farewell meeting. And when we walked into the room where we were going to have the meeting, there was a projector there. And so John was like, we could have a slideshow of all of our photos. And I'm thinking that we can't do that. We haven't done that. You haven't put it all together. He said, well, we'll just flip through my photos. Of course, everyone loves flipping through everyone's photos. But of course, I immediately started thinking, what all is in his photos? Of course, John's photos are pictures of rocks and monuments and, descriptions of monuments. But like mine, I screenshot text sometimes so that I can share it with him or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or there's some, I think I sent you one not too long ago of the top of my head with my gray hair part showing. So I'm just picturing when they were talking about, we'll just hook it. It was David Webster and Austin Fowler. They had John's phone and they're saying, we'll just hook it up with this cord and stick it on the projector, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, wait a minute. I just need to think about this for a minute. Is there anything in there that I've sent him? I mean, nothing bad. Like you said, it wouldn't be sinful or anything like that, but personal. So yeah, wake up call. That's a good story. That is what do you call it? A cautionary tale.
Yes. I challenge everybody to pick the person closest to you that you text the most and go back and look at 12 pages worth of text and see how you would feel if somebody read them.
Yeah.
Of course, all of our listeners are probably better than I am, and that's not an issue.
Oh, it makes my stomach hurt.
Mine too.
I'm glad it turned out
moving right along. I feel sweaty. I feel sweaty all of a sudden.
I am sweaty, so I'm just feeling sweaty and I am sweaty. Oh. All right. Well, John is outside the room somewhere, probably wishing I would hurry up. So we probably should just move along with our topic unless you have more things you need to share.
Oh no, I'm ready.
Okay. Well, our topic this week comes from a post that I saw on Facebook, and I'm just going to read what it says. And I imagine some of you saw this if you were on Facebook last week or a week before, I don't remember. It's someone, I didn't catch who it is. I think it's I'm with you, sister, or something like that. It's a page. And she said, could we please bring back the lost art of the simple get together? Fancy dinners are great, theme nights are so fun, but it is hard to plan that stuff. As a whole, we're really not craving over the top celebrations. We're craving connections, but we've got to make it easier and lower the expectations. Lower. Nope, even lower. So invite some neighbors to hang out in lawn chairs, get out a pack of cards, throw down your leftover Christmas paper plates, shove the clothes and toys scattered around in the coat closet, light a candle, and call it good. And this is what I love the most. It doesn't need to be Instagram worthy to be worthy. Being together is enough. So I was just thinking about you and I and our closest friends around this table, this imaginary table that we have, talking about making those connections, but not having to make it so fancy or perfect or over the top or, just so perfectionistic. Because there's so many things. I've just thought this many times, and I hope that no one who likes to do this, I think there's a lot of people whose love language is planning these fancy and fun and inventive things for other people, and that's how they express their love. And so I hope nobody will think that I'm being critical of that, because I'm not. But I think that for those of us who don't do that or can't do that or feel inadequate doing things like that, we need to get over that and realize that those who do, they're not doing it to be competitive. They're not trying to intimidate us, but that's just how we feel sometimes. So I kept thinking when I was trying to do a little preparation for this in the time that I had today, what is the goal when I'm doing something for someone? If I'm hosting something, if I'm trying to sit down and have a meal with something, what is my goal? Is it to impress them? And sometimes I think it can be our goal is to wow them. And again, not necessarily, I don't mean that in an insulting way, because I think maybe we just haven't thought about it before. There's these over the top, in my opinion, gender reveals or engagement parties or I mean, even weddings now. Back in our day, here we go again. We had church weddings, and afterwards we had mints and nuts and
Mints
cake
and
and
nuts and a
punch.
cake. Yep.
Yeah, and that's it. And now it's a sit down meal, and the tables are dripping. Every table's got flowers and greenery and crystal and place cards, and it's beautiful. And if this is an opinion show. I mean, not a show, but this is an opinion podcast, I guess today is for those of you who feel the pressure to do things that way, to be that way. What can we do differently to help other people not feel that pressure to do that? And what can we do to make those connections between people and realize that what we're trying to alleviate is the loneliness that other people feel, or the disconnection with fellow Christians or the world, or wherever we're feeling this need that's lacking. What can we do differently? So what do you think about all that?
Well, I was excited when I saw that, when you sent it to me, because I saw that too, that little thing that she wrote, and I loved it. And my first thought was this would be a great podcast episode. And the first thing that came to me was similar to your train of thought is, I was thinking about birthdays, how they've gotten, especially for little kids, how they've gotten to be such a big deal. And does that put a lot of pressure on moms these days to keep up with that, or their kids are going to feel like they've been robbed a little bit? And the hospitality thing aspect of it, of course, but to get a little bit personal here right out of the gate, I admit to being a little intimidated by it all, maybe in slightly different ways, in that, I have certain things that I usually cook that my kids knew as company meals, the They always knew that if we were having somebody over and it was their first time coming over, I typically made cheesy chicken and rice, green beans, deviled eggs, mandarin, like a salad with mandarin oranges, kind of a thing, and then a chocolate cake. That was like
Mm-hmm.
my go-to company meal. And so after we moved here, I've made that a couple of times for company. So literally, I've been doing that since Neil and I were first married. I've made it a couple of times for company, and it hasn't gone over very well. And so my other thing is just a roast, a roast in the crock
Yeah.
pot, cooks all day, gravy, mashed potatoes. And then for some reason, a lot of the men around here don't like pot roast. And I feel like
What? In
I know,
Kentucky?
yes. And I feel like since we've been here, I feel like everything that I'm comfortable and familiar with and cook doesn't really resonate. And it's not anybody's fault. Nobody has said anything mean to me. These are just things I've like picked up, hearing conversations or going to somebody's house, and I feel like they have these amazing spreads, which is wonderful, thoughtful, generous, 3, 4, 5 different types of meats, you know,
Wow.
and cooking proteins is probably my weakest skill in the kitchen. And so it's just I've kind of let it get to me, and I've kind of let it intimidate me a little bit, and it makes me not want to do it as much because I feel like I can't do that.
Mm.
It's not going to be good enough. It's going to come across as less than, or oh, thanks.
Yeah. Mm.
And so I think I've kind of let that just affect me.
Mm.
And when I read that thing, it really resonated with me because I was like, yeah, let's just
Mm-hmm.
let's just focus on forming connections and getting together and not trying to impress. And I'm not blaming anybody else because those have been wonderful experiences. I've loved
Mm-hmm.
them. But I needed to do a little heart check myself and say, like you said, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because I feel the need to try to keep up or try to impress or hold my own? Or is it just to spend time with people?
Yeah. And make them feel at home and make them feel
Mm-hmm.
loved. Yeah, I think that's um, the first thing that came to mind. Well, one of the first things that came to my mind when I read that was how you've always talked about Tammy Roberts and the cereal nights, and
Yeah.
just how back in the day when y'all were at Bear Valley and kids were young, she would just say on Sunday night, everybody go get your favorite box of cereal, and they provided the milk, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and come over for cereal and games, and don't you just feel the most comfortable
Yeah.
in a situation like that? And I know we talked about that when we did the hospitality issue, but I thought this focuses more on providing those comfortable settings to engage with one another, to maybe open doors for more deep communication, or even just laughter, just being together and just feeling comfortable. And and when you spend time like that, there's nothing like that kind of time to make you feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with someone, to where the next time you see him, you can walk up to him, give him a hug, or laugh about something that you laughed about when you got to know each other that night, whatever. And that's something that I think Christians need to be pretty comfortable doing, because we're here for one another. We're here to bear one another's burdens. We're here to encourage the faint-hearted and lift up the fallen. And not that every time we get together it's going to be a big counseling session necessarily, but sometimes it leads to that.
Mm-hmm.
It leads to tears. Somebody's having a hard time, and we can hug on them, love on them, and just let them know that we're here for them. So I was just trying to think of some ways that we might be able to make that easier, rather than just having these, I say just, and I don't mean that, but rather than when you walk in the door looking for the wow factor. And I know, me personally, I like for my house to look a certain way when people walk in. Now, after everyone's there, I don't care what it looks like. We can make a mess and things can be thrown around, but I like for it to be nice and tidy. Even my bar stools, I like them to be set a certain way. And sometimes John will come pull one out and sit down and then leave it sitting out, like your bar stool behind you. If it's, a,
Yeah.
cattywampus, then that bothers me. And then that bothers me about myself, that things like that bother me. But so what can we do to connect people? How can we connect them? What are some ways that we can make people comfortable to be around us, to be around each other? Are there simple things that we can do? And I know that there are, just it doesn't always have to be in our home. I was thinking about just inviting someone to sit down and have a cup of coffee. And you don't have to entertain someone. You don't have to have this whole afternoon. Well, first we're going to go have coffee, and then we're going to go visit this store, and then we're going to play miniature golf or whatever. I'm terrible at thinking things off the top of my head, but making someone just feel um, not so alone. And that's what I hope that we can do. But when we were at dinner tonight, before we met, you and I got the podcast going. We were having dinner with John and Maria Kallenbach and Ray and Melanie Whitman. And so Melanie and Maria and I were talking about this topic. And Melanie brought up the fact that she says, why do we save the good stuff for some other time? And so this is a little bit, I had to kind of think about it because I'm talking about not using the good stuff. But yet she was saying, sometimes we have these beautiful tabletops and we cover them up with this tablecloth because we don't want the kids to get crumbs down in the cracks, and we don't want it to get dirty, or what. We want to preserve the beauty of it. And yet we're covering it up when we have company, or when we have even our family. What are we telling our family? That if we're not using something that's beautiful because they're not special enough? And so that was something I kind of thought about too, because I know there's things like we remember the days when the sofas were covered in clear plastic vinyl. Because have you ever seen one like that?
I've seen it on TV.
Yeah, I've seen them. People are so worried that they're going to get something spilled on them that they have this nasty, stiff plastic on their couches because they want it to look a certain way, not because they want it to be comfortable. And there's just something a little bit strange about that to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Seems like your skin would stick to it.
It does. It does. If you don't have something covering your skin, it will. And then, taking care, this is kind of like where Melanie was going, taking care of something so much that you're not using it. And so I think we do that sometimes too. But anyway, I just was trying to think of ways that we can look around us and see who might be lonely and what can we do for them. And just, so what can you think of things besides hospitality, ways that we can make people feel connected?
Well, when you brought this up, I kind of wanted to see, because it seemed like your emphasis was on ways to connect, making a connection, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. Simplify that and put the emphasis back on connection. And I did a little bit of a dive into what we can find in the Word. And I knew this would be the case, but when you do find places where they were, God's people were spending time together and connecting, there's nothing about the trappings, the things that we get hung up on. There's nothing there about that. And so I kind of thought of calling this the biblical pattern for connecting. And maybe just a little bit of a reminder of, if we just remember that this is what it's all about, then all that other stuff can be fun. Some people really enjoy that. I can think of certain individuals I know that are so good at making everything special, and it's enjoyable to experience that too. That can be fun, but it's extra. And it could be elaborate, but that's extra. It could be simple. It could be last minute. To me, those are the funnest moments, when it's just like unplanned, last minute. And so as I think about that, the goal is to form those kinds of connections and relationships that you're comfortable doing that. And, when somebody has a last minute something and they hook you into it, how does that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
hey,
it's
we just
special.
thought we'd have a few people over to, you know, blah blah blah. Do you mind picking up some drinks on the way? Because, it just, yeah, it makes you feel special. So you can probably think of some other verses, but these are the ones that I found. The first thing is be devoted to it. And that's from Acts 2, verse 42. It says that they were devoted, and it was talking about their, almost like committed to or cherishing their time together, and that they were together day by day. So if that's where we start, all that other stuff, like what I admitted to wrestling with,
Mm-hmm.
is not gonna matter. It's not gonna keep me from doing what I want to or need to be doing. An interesting one that I found is the biblical pattern for connection is to walk in the light, because that passage in First John 1, verses 6 and 7, if you walk in the light, it's talking about our relationship with God, but of course, also talking about fellowship one with another. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we walk in the light, we're building it both ways. It creates fellowship with other Christians and opportunities for that. The next one was to think about how to encourage others toward love and good works. And that was from Hebrews 10:24 and 25. Consider how to stir up one another. That's why we come together, and
Mm-hmm.
consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. And if that's what you're doing and that's your objective, then how everything looks is going to take a back seat to that. Or what you're
Mm-hmm.
serving is going to take a back seat to that, because the emphasis is I just want to look for a way to get with my brothers and sisters and the people around me and encourage them.
Right.
Um, Generosity plays a part. Acts 4:32 says, "No one said that any of the things that belonged to him was his own." And whew, I really had to kind of camp out with this one for a little bit, because sometimes it is my own stinginess also. Whatever excuse I'm throwing out there, it probably is a little bit of my own stinginess. I'm protecting my time, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But my time, my home, if I'm generous with it, it's gonna set itself up for connections. And then the last one was focus on the purpose, which kind of goes back to where you started all of this. And that's from 1 Peter 4:9, which simply says, show hospitality to one another without grumbling.
Mm-hmm.
And the emphasis is on the showing the hospitality. And if we're keeping it simple and just remembering why we're doing it, I think it makes it a lot easier not to grumble about it. It's all that extra pressure and stress and to do, and I have to have an appetizer, and I have to have a main course, and I have to have a dessert, and I have to have this, the table setting and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
um if we're more focused on all of that stuff, again, like you said, nothing wrong with that, but to the point that it causes us to stress about it or complain about it or whatever, we've lost sight of why we're doing it in the first place.
Yeah. Those are great, great points. And I mean, I alluded to a couple of verses already that I had written down. Galatians 6:2, or to bear one another's burdens. And it's taking it a little bit out of context, but that's what we end up doing when we are with one another, when we're more comfortable with one another. And you just find yourself in situations where you are ministering to one another, which is what we're all about as
Mm-hmm.
Christians, to minister to one another and see how we can help one another. And I think of that sign that Aaron gave me again, that says we're all just walking each other home, and I love it, and that's what we're
I do
doing.
too.
And
Yeah, that's so
so
good.
yeah, it is. And then First Thessalonians 5:14, that we're to encourage the faint-hearted and help the weak, and to be patient with one another. And there's a lot of people in the world that we're not best friends with, but we can be friendly too, and
Mm-hmm.
we can show them who the Lord is by how we treat them. And that, to me, what they said in this post about, doesn't have to be Instagram worthy. It just has to be worthy. In the contrast of those two, and Instagram worthy or worthy of who I am. Do I walk in such a way that shows that I know the worth of what Christ did for me? And part of that is how I treat my fellow human. And so those were the passages that I thought about. There is a song called "Go Light Your World" by Chris Rice. And one of the verses says, I love this. It says, carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused, and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. And then the next verse says, frustrated brother, see how he's tried to light his own candle some other way. See now your sister, she's been robbed and lied to, still holds a candle without a flame. And then the chorus again, carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the lonely, the tired and worn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle and go light your world. And oh, it just, every time I just read the words, it brings tears to my eyes because people are looking for connections and they're finding the connections in all the wrong places. And I see this all the time, you know, these empty spots that we have in our soul. We want to fill it with worldly things. We want to fill it with worldly friends or whatever it is. But yet you and I, representing the Lord, can provide what they really are seeking. And so I hope that we'll do that, you know, run to the darkness. I love that phrase, and seek out those that need our help. And just loneliness, I think it breaks my heart. And I've seen this. I've seen it. You know, we worked in college ministry for many years and just in ministry in general, there's always someone sitting by themselves. There's always someone who's experienced a loss that we can just, I mean, talk about making a connection, just sitting down next to them in worship. Someone was talking today about someone who visited services. It was someone that just walked in off the street. He didn't have shoes on. The building was full and he didn't know where to sit. So he just sat down on the floor in the aisle. And, you know, people were kind of looking around and like kind of, you know, nervous about what this guy was going to do. And one of the elders got up and went and sat next to him on the floor in the middle of the aisle. And oh, talk about making someone feel welcome and at home. And that's just what, you know, maybe we are drifting a little bit off topic, but we're just trying to make those connections and make people know the love that God has for them and how he can provide for all of their needs. So,
yeah, that's beautiful. And I was thinking that every now and then you see those little snippets here and there about, do you remember back when people used to hang out on the front porch together, or, you know, whatever task you had, you really weren't ever doing it by yourself. Some other woman was always with you, helping you in the kitchen, or, you know, and I think about those things, and there is sort of a little bit of nostalgia about it, like the good old days kind of vibe going on. But really, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's about sharing life together, and that's what we're trying to do. And there's a lot of scriptures about the fact that God made us for each other so we can support each other, you know, between here and there. And that's what that's all about. And if we pare away the trappings, and, you know, we're just keeping it simple and inviting somebody in, and, you know, we're not just talking about hospitality, but like you're saying, looking for ways to connect, inviting somebody to be a part of your life, then to me, that's what you're doing. And I think we've mentioned this on here before. If you've been to somebody's house and it was, you know, beautiful spread, you know, everything's coordinated and the meal is, you know, fancy, and it's a wonderful experience. There's, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of times some of your happiest memories come from the way more simplified version. You know, somebody has you over and you're ordering pizza and eating it on paper plates because it's the laughter, it's the conversation, and I think in those situations, what you're doing is saying, I'm not just inviting you over for an event. I'm inviting you into my life.
Yeah.
I'm inviting you into my home. This is who we are. This is how we live. And I'm letting you see that. And that, to me, really grows relationships and changes relationships. And it makes me feel special when somebody feels comfortable enough to say, come on over. Things are, you know, there's a pile of laundry out, but if you can overlook that, you know, it just, I don't know, makes me feel good, makes me feel special. And that's what we're trying to do for everybody, is to let them see they're loved. and
Yeah.
they're seen and they're special. God loves them. We love them, and
Hmm.
that's, again, oversimplifying, but that's the objective.
Yeah. Yeah. Maria, tonight in that conversation we were having talking about this topic, she said that she remembered going to someone's house. I don't remember if she said who it was, um, but she said it was, she didn't say it was a mess, but I kind of took from it that it was very lived in wherever she had gone to. But she said the woman didn't make any apology. She wasn't like, oh, I'm so sorry that this isn't just perfect. I'm sorry that the table's not clear or whatever. And Maria says, usually I feel, and I do too, that things need to be put away, need to look nice. I want my kitchen to be clean, all that kind of stuff. But she said she just felt so honored that someone would trust her to be in the middle of her private space and not feel like there was any facade. There's no pretending to be someone that they're not. When, like you said, you invite them into your life, and your life is messy sometimes, and literally messy, and figuratively as well. But yeah, I mean, I've had that experience too, where I feel like, oh, they trust me with their life, with how they are, and that to me is so much more meaningful than magic china and whatever else. Not to take anything away from your Altscraft that you're going to have your dinner party with soon. But
Well,
there
I
was
try. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. This is different.
I try to make
Mhm.
it, very modern day. When I read those things and I'm picturing people hanging out on the porch or hanging out in the kitchen, what would that even look like
Yeah.
today in our very fast paced, very digitally connected world?
Hmm.
And, maybe this is just an example. Maybe I'm going to make strawberry jam on a Saturday afternoon. And instead of just doing it by myself, I invite a couple of friends or ladies over to do it with me. Let's all
Hmm.
just and then we can visit while we're doing it. And I love being able to visit, but also feel like you're kind of accomplishing something, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. But I thought, what would the hang up be? And I came up with two personal hang-ups for me. One, I think in my mind, I'd be going, nobody's going to want to do that. Like, I feel like they'd be going, why are you inviting me over here to put me to work? Like, what are you trying to do? Get free
Oh,
labor out of me or something?
I don't think
Um,
anybody would think that.
But I did that when we were first married. An older woman in the church invited a few ladies over, and we spent the whole afternoon making peach jam. I think I've said that on here before, and it left such an impression on me, and it was so fun. But so my
Hmm.
first hang up is, I mean, like, who would I even ask? Because who's going to do that? But second is the whole selfish aspect of it. Of, well, then I've changed the whole job, because then I'm not just making strawberry jam. Well, now I'm going to have to clean my house, and I'm going to have to make sure I have enough materials for everybody, and I'm going to have to make sure that they have a good time and that they can go home with some, and I'm going to have it all prepped ahead of time.
Hmm.
But why?
Yeah.
None of that is true. And why do I feel that way? Why do I feel the pressure to do that? Why can't they just come over and I've still got to still got to rinse the strawberries, or still got to grab the sugar out, or,
Hmm.
you know, it's just all this extra, but things have to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's
And we
such
put
an
that on ourselves.
inhibitor. Yes, we
Hmm.
put that on ourselves. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is pressuring that at all.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know if that's the whole, this is a Instagram. Just because it's not Instagram worthy doesn't mean it's not worthy. Is it that Instagram influence
Hmm.
that we're subject to, and can be swayed by, I don't know.
Well, sometimes I think when we do those things, when we want to post something like that, it becomes about the gratification that we feel about being able to make people say, "Oh, this is so nice. This is so lovely. I wish I could do
Mm-hmm.
something like this." And
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes kind of a selfish thing on our part of wanting that. I don't know if it's an adrenaline rush or not, but wanting people to think better of us. And I think we just haven't really thought that through. Like that article that Laura Warnes wrote, that hospitality is about you, it's not about me.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I,
but it made me, when you were talking about making jam, it made me think of people that I've heard of that they have the ladies into their home, and they have three or four women that have a talent, and they have them demonstrate that talent and let them do one alongside with them, whether it's embroidery, and then everyone gets a little square of embroidery floss and stuff and gets to stitch, and or maybe it's a little bit of painting, or just talk about making connections. And then one other thing, and then I'm going to get you to say what you're going to say. Melanie, that I was talking about tonight, she and Evie Cisco at the Katie congregation, where Jordan and Aaron are members, they're the ones, and I know I've talked about this before, but they're the ones that host the young moms, like once a quarter, I think, or maybe it's once a month.
Oh yeah.
And I am excited about going back home after this, because then we have almost 15 months at home, and little trips here and there, but where I want to start something like that. And all they do is, I say all they do, but they host all of the young moms. If you have a child between this age and this age, come to dinner, and they serve them. Melanie and Evie serve them a meal, and they don't sit there with them necessarily. They might sometimes, but they provide the means for the young moms to make connections among themselves. They get to come and just sit and enjoy. They don't have to clean up. They don't have to fix. They don't have to bring. Sometimes they have a craft or something that they do.
And
do
they bring their kids?
Just no kids. Dads keep their own kids.
Keep the kids.
And
okay.
Yeah, so it's just a free, fun, easy night for the moms to get together. And so I think that's a great way of ministering to those young moms. So there's lots of things that we can do.
Yeah, reminded me that at our last ladies Bible class, a couple of the young moms were saying something like, wouldn't it be fun if, and they were talking about getting together and have somebody share a particular skill or talent, whether it be cooking or sewing or whatever. So I'd forgotten about that. Well, something you said a minute ago about now I forget exactly what you said. It was about why we're doing what we're doing, or why we're serving, or what did you say?
I don't remember. Are you kidding? I can't remember.
Whatever you said made me think of,
because we're not doing it are we doing it for ourselves, or are we doing it for the people that we're inviting in?
Thank you. That's exactly what you said. But there's a quote that I'm saving that I'm going to share really soon because it's by Elizabeth Elliot, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'll probably butcher it. But she's basically saying, Lord, deliver me from the delusion of thinking I want to serve, when really I just want to serve in big enough ways that other people take notice.
Yeah. They can see me.
Yes. And it just almost gives me chills to think about that. And when I first read that, I was like, oh, I acknowledge that I struggle with that. And would I be as willing to do those behind the scenes acts of service that nobody will ever know about? I'm helping out in the kitchen at camp, but that's fun. First of all, I get to eat Dana's cooking. Everybody sees you doing it. Do I do other things on the side that nobody ever sees and will ever acknowledge? Or
that goes back to serving, and the fact that when you do serve, you realize how gratifying it is. So you do get that feeling of that good feeling, but you have to do it a few times in ways that aren't seen and aren't maybe noticed, to realize that you're doing it for God.
Yes. And I was thinking back to the motivation thing again. Why are we wanting to connect with people? If it's about the acknowledgement or the praise, we're looking at it completely wrong, and we're motivated by things that are going to hinder what we're ultimately trying to do, probably.
Yeah. Okay, there's one more area that I wanted to bring up, and then we need to wrap up because I know I need to pack. But this is the one when I was thinking about, it doesn't have to be Instagram worthy to be worthy. And especially probably younger women I don't know, because I struggle with this, and you probably do too. Instagram worthy with regard to our appearance, to be worthy. So, all the filters and all of the, I know I take the glasses off every time someone wants to take my picture because I hate the way I look in glasses, and yet I have them on. It's so dumb, I know, because this is what I look like. to people when they see me. And most 90% of the time, I'm going to have the glasses on. And yet I take them off for a picture because I want my pictures to look nice. And so, do we feel like we have to look perfect in pictures to be worthy? Do we feel like we have to look a certain way to be worthy? And we've been outside. In fact, I don't know what I look right now because I saw a picture of myself from last night. When we've been outside for 2 weeks, I've got raccoon eyes. I mean, I've had my sunglasses on, and so my eyes are completely white and the rest of my face is tan. But there's all kinds of face issues that I have, whether it's, just whatever. It's embarrassing to even talk about. But when you're in the sun and when you're outside with people, it's right there on display. And I'm right next to people. You're in people's face, they're in your face, and there's nothing hidden. And I have had to get over that, and I'm not over it because I tend to like duck my head, or I turn, I feel self-conscious about the way that I look, especially outdoors, because I know it's just, can't hide anything. And I'm really trying hard to get over that self-consciousness because it doesn't do me any good. It just makes me even more awkward. The people are probably wondering, why is she turning her head or whatever it is that I'm doing. So, this is where I'm trying to get to not place any value on how I look, Instagram worthy, um, perfect filters. I'm just not. This is me, and this is what I keep telling myself. This is who God made me, and this is how He wants me to look. I don't mean leave your makeup off and whatever, because I think we all want to clean up and look and smell nice and all that, but sometimes we just don't, and I have to be okay with that because that's where I am, and that's how He made me, and that's how other people are. And I look at other people, and when they have flaws, that doesn't bother me. That I just realize they've got flaws because I do too, and this is the way humans are. So I I don't know how that's coming across, especially I guess to younger women who want to do all of the filters and the look perfect and all of the perfect makeup and the perfect hair before you go anywhere. Don't let anybody see me. Um, we've got to work on that. I think we've got to get better at being comfortable with letting other people into our personal space. And anyway, I don't know if that came across
Yeah.
the way
You
I
know,
wanted it to. But
I think so. And I wonder if it all comes down to continually checking our hearts to make sure we're seeing things the way God sees them. First of all,
perfectly put. Hmm.
about your complexion, it's so ironic to me that you would even mention that because I think you have one of the most beautiful complexions of any woman I've ever known. So
Well,
I
you're
think we're
sweet.
so more self-conscious about things in our own body, and everybody else will be like, "What are you talking about?"
You
But being able to see things the way God sees them, the definition of wisdom, as I've heard it put, because just like with Instagram, I've been learning more and more recently how very pervasive it is, intentionally so, and intentionally um, formulating how we think and the choices that we make. And Dave Eubank just had a class at Lehman Avenue, one of our Bible classes, and he was just mentioning about like with AI and algorithms
hmm
and marketing. He has insight into all of that, and it is scary how, I mean, the things that you're seeing when you pull up Pinterest or YouTube or Instagram or whatever you use, Facebook,
hmm
is specifically geared to what they know you're interested in. And so
hmm
all those things that you're seeing everybody do, you think you have to do. They even know if you're left-handed or right-handed.
Ooh,
They know what you're interested in just by if you pause a little bit when you're scrolling.
hmm
If you
yeah.
pause a little bit, you don't even have to click on it or like it. If you pause a little,
hmm
they know that.
yeah.
And so I feel like then you're seeing everything from, think about a woman my age. I've been interested in things like home decor, health, hormones, So all of a sudden I'm seeing what products I'm supposed to be using in my hair, and what kind of blow dryer I'm supposed to use, and how much protein I'm supposed to be eating, and what I need to do to balance out my hormones. And I need these products and
Yeah.
supplements and I feel like it's just like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to look like this. I need to do this if I want to. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to realize this is all very intentional.
Hmm.
It just is. It's marketing.
Yeah.
And step away from our homes. Don't have to look like that. Our hospitality doesn't have to look like that. Our tables don't, our events
Hmm.
don't have to look like that. Our faces don't have to look like that,
Yeah.
and just to be able to kind of disconnect and see it for what it is, all the very intentional, targeted things kind of makes it easier to see, wow, I just got sucked into that real quick,
Yeah.
into that vortex, if you
Yeah.
will. And I actually don't need that and don't have to do that. And
Hmm.
this doesn't have to be a necessary ingredient for me to get together with a bunch of ladies,
Yeah.
and just being able to kind of step back, spend more time in the word, probably. See things the
Always.
way
Yeah.
God sees them. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. That's the perfect way of putting it. See as God sees us. And I've thought that so many times about you, about other people. I wish you could see yourself the way I see you. I wish you could see yourself the way God sees you. I wish I could see myself the way God sees me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just a continual work that we have to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's that word again, intentional, and
Intentional.
realizing that
Mm-hmm.
it's not about, it's not about what the world sees when they look at me. It's about what God sees when He looks at me. So
Yeah.
anyway, okay, well,
Well,
good discussion.
I just wanted to finally share the why for all of this. I thought the
Okay.
perfect why. Why is this even? Why are we talking about it? Why is it even important? Is Colossians 2:2. Hearts are encouraged when we're knit together in love,
That's
and
great.
that's what it all comes down to. Whether
Hmm.
we're talking about connecting, hospitality, relationships, whatever. Get over yourself.
Yeah,
We're just trying to encourage hearts, and that happens
yeah,
through connection.
yeah. And we encourage our own heart when we encourage other hearts.
Yes.
I've seen that over and
Yeah.
over again in my own life when you get out of your own head and try to help someone else. And that,
Mm-hmm.
I think we drifted a little bit off the topic, but not somewhere that wasn't helpful. At least it's been helpful for me. So it doesn't have to be Instagram worthy to be worthy. In fact, I think the opposite is true. It's more
Mm-hmm.
worthy when it's not Instagram worthy. So
Amen to that.
yeah.
Yes, I like that.
Well, it's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say something more about the end of the season and when we'll be back?
So this is the last episode of our third season. We're going to take a couple weeks off. I have camp, and I don't know the exact date. I didn't look that up, but we'll take a couple weeks off. That's it, and then have season 4, episode 1 coming out soon.
Yeah,
Um,
in a couple weeks.
so I do have something good for you,
Good.
but I kind of don't want to share it now that you just had this big whole talk about appearances and.
Something to make you look better.
So here's mine. It's the CeraVe. How do you pronounce that?
I don't know.
CeraVe. But
Sarab.
we went to Florida for our anniversary, and I wanted to get a sunscreen for my face that had a little bit of a tint to it, so I wouldn't have to,
Mhm.
I could just put it on all day and not worry about anything else. And I found this. It's CeraVe. It's a hydrating mineral sunscreen with a sheer tint to it, and I think they literally only have this one shade.
Okay.
And I got it, not really thinking anything of it. I just wanted to slap something on my skin when I was in Florida, and I loved it. I love
Cool.
the way it feels. It's not a real, thick coverage, of course, but now I wear it every day, and it's a 30 sunscreen, broad spectrum SPF 30. So I'm getting my sunscreen and just a little bit of tint in one
Yeah.
step.
A healthy glow.
Yes. So anyway, and it's
Cool.
not expensive, and that's my something good for you.
Good. Okay. Well, I'll just say that my something good is Zycam. Go Google it.
That's
Look
right.
it up.
You
It
just
really
you
is very
just shared it
helpful.
at the beginning instead of at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned the algorithms and the AI and all, because I think there's a pair of shoes. I love fit flop shoes. They are just comfortable to me and they have the arch support and all that. Anyway, there's been an ad that has a certain shoe that I keep looking at, and I know I'm not going to get it. It's too expensive, but maybe once they go on clearance. But I was one day I was like, oh, I like those. But you think about it before you scroll slowly by because you know. And then I thought, well, and if I need to remember what that shoe is, I'm sure it'll come back up again in my algorithm. And sure enough, it's like
Yeah.
every day I see that shoe. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
there's something good about it. If you forget what it is that you liked, it'll bring it back up for you. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't even have to tell it what you like. It knows. I don't know who they are or what it is, but they and it are watching us. My life's pretty boring though, so they'll be it and they will get bored.
Well, this was
All
a
right.
fun conversation.
It was.
Even
It
though
was
you're
helpful for me.
tired, thanks for squeezing this in on your round the world travels, and you're
Yeah. Just be
stinky
glad you can't
and
smell me.
tired, and we still had this conversation. So thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
We can't
Always worth
smell
it.
you. We can't smell you through the screen, so it's good.
Be glad. Be very glad.
You
I
still
can't
look
wait to take
good.
a shower. Thanks. It's all from here up, right?
We're praying for you to have a safe travels home.
Yeah. Pray for uneventful. That's my favorite kind of travel.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can get home safely and eventfully.
That's
Major
right.
turbulence,
Okay.
emergency landing. Just pray for uneventful. That's what I
I'll
like.
pray for uneventful travel. That sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. All right. Well, I love you. It's been great. I've enjoyed the conversation and I've enjoyed our third season. Um, it's been a blessing. So thanks for thinking it up. And until next time,
Keep looking up.
all right.
Love
See you
you.
soon. Bye.